The Acts of Philip seem to explain all the mysteries behind this inscription. But if this is really the ossuary belonging to Mary Magdalene, then there's one more thing that needs to be investigated. The common held belief, based on medieval tradition, is that after the death of Jesus, the disciples were expelled from Judea and scattered to many lands, traveling and spreading the word of God. After some time, Mary Magdalene ended up in France, where she spent the last of her days. Following this later Christian tradition, it would be impossible to discover Mary Magdalene's coffin in Tel Piat, Jerusalem. However, in the Acts of Philip, written in the 4th century, the oldest known account of Mary Magdalene's travels, she does not die in France. The Acts of Philip clearly tell us that Mary Magdalene, Jesus' most trusted apostle, dies here in Jerusalem. Would it really be that implausible to find her buried beside Jesus in the tomb of the Jesus family? The statistical probabilities are compelling. The cluster of names in the Tel Piat tomb, extraordinary. The connections to the Gospels, too strong to dismiss. The common belief among archaeologists and historians is that there is almost no archaeological evidence of early Christianity until the 4th century, 300 years after the death of Jesus. This is when the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great legalized Christianity, essentially allowing an underground movement acceptance into general civil society. Its popularity exploded across the empire, and Constantine became known as the first Christian emperor. But it's hard to believe that an early Christian movement, strong enough to last 300 years of persecution and then sweep the Roman Empire, would have left no archaeological evidence of its existence. Today, the cross is immediately associated with crucifixion. But that is a reference that would have been horrific during the years directly following Jesus' death.
For anyone in the 1st century to wear a cross around their neck would like someone today wearing a little electric chair. It was disgusting. It was a symbol of torture. And it was only when crucifixion was stopped that the human imagination was able to move from the reality to the symbol.
It's a terrible thing when a culture is wiped out. And yet, you know, there's a sense in which that's happened to Jesus and his followers. Now that sounds very shocking. Somebody says, what? Jesus and his followers? They became Christianity. They're not wiped out. But that original movement, the way they originally were as Jews right here in this area, believing in their own version of the Jewish faith, but also following Jesus, that sort of disappeared. And I think it's disappeared for theological reasons, even though I think the material evidence is around, if we'll just open our eyes and see it.
Could it be that there was a movement made up of Jews who saw Jesus as their Messiah, not their God? And because this movement largely disappeared from history, we are blind to the archaeological evidence they've left behind. If there is evidence for this movement of Judeo-Christians, the logical place to look for it is here.
That's good.
In 1953, while renovating, the Franciscans discovered a 2,000-year-old cemetery. This ancient necropolis was partially excavated by a well-known archaeologist named Bellarmino Bagatti. Bagatti claimed that these ossuaries belonged to some of the earliest followers of Jesus.
If this is a early Judeo-Christian cemetery, then that means that our tomb is not sitting in some kind of archaeological vacuum. It's really part of a network of cemeteries. This can provide an archaeological context for our tomb.
In this network of tombs, the Franciscans discovered a bone box with an inscription naming one of the most famous early Christians, Simon Bar Yonah.
Now, I don't know if everybody will recognize that immediately, but Jesus said to Simon Peter, who's venerated later as the Pope and the head of the church, "You are Simon Bar Jonah, blessed are you, Peter." See, his name is not Peter, that's a Greek word. His name is Shimon, Shimon Bar Yonah.
Today, only a piece of the ossuary remains. The Franciscans have stored it in a small museum beside their church. It bears an indisputable inscription, the only one ever found spelling the name Simon Bar Yonah. Simon was one of the 12 original apostles of Jesus. According to the Gospels, Jesus renamed him Peter. In Aramaic, Kepha, which means rock. He's considered a saint by many Christians and the first pope by the Roman Catholic Church. According to tradition, Simon Peter was crucified and buried in Rome. So how could his coffin be here in Jerusalem? The fact is, there has never been any credible archaeological evidence found in Rome underneath the Vatican that points to Simon Bar Yonah. And here sits an ossuary discovered at Dominus Flevit, bearing his name. So if this is a Judeo-Christian necropolis, it is part of a network of cemeteries and tombs that belong to the early followers of Jesus, including Jesus' family.
Okay, you're not gonna believe this. You're not gonna believe it. I'm imagining it. Can you see?
Now I see.
It's a symbol from the tomb, on an ossuary.
This is incredible because the angle and the thing is identical.
It's identical.
And the dot inside.
The dot is deliberately inside. The inverted V with a dot in the middle, the symbol from our tomb, right on an ossuary from what is suspected an early cemetery of the followers of Jesus.
To find this symbol displayed on an ossuary here, in the necropolis of Dominus Flevit, directly connects it to what is believed to be some of the earliest evidence of Christianity. As to who may have been buried in this ossuary, and whether or not he knew the Simon of Cyrene who displays the same markings on his bone box, or the Jesus son of Joseph whose tomb has been emblazoned with the same symbol, we can only speculate. But when it comes to forensics, modern science doesn't allow for much speculation. By studying ancient DNA in bone fragments and human residue left behind in ossuaries, scientists can now determine familial relationships between the various people in the Talpiot tomb. Stephen Phan is the director of the Center for the Study of Early Christianity, and he's assisting Stephen Cox, a forensic archaeologist from New York State. They have discovered valuable material inside the ossuaries inscribed Mariamne and Jesus, son of Joseph.
Inside this ossuary, we've got some material that's adhering to the surface of the stone in a very interesting circular pattern. It's worthy of picking out and taking a look at it and see what its composition is. The pattern and or material could give us a big clue as to who, what, when, and where.
It seems outlandish that these samples might contain the DNA of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. But if there's enough material, these tests may shed a new light on Jesus and his family.
So this is sample 80-500.
The samples have been numbered and sent to this DNA lab in Thunder Bay, Canada, one of only 5 labs in the world that specializes in ancient DNA. The scientists don't know that the samples belong to a Jesus, son of Joseph, and a woman who might be Mary Magdalene.